Hello and welcome to our International Women's Day Bristol City feature. I'm pleased to say alongside me in the studio I've got head coach Lauren Smith with me from Bristol City and Emma Jolliffe, fairly newly appointed. This is your first time in the studio, isn't it, as a guest,
Yes.
as head of operations for Bristol City Women. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're a pro at this. You're often, well, most of the time you're out on the field, but you've also been in alongside us in studio for commentary games and analysis. So I will start with Emma. Emma, I know that this is given that the theme for International Women's Day is inspire inclusion, we did have to slightly browbeat you into coming, but it is so important for you to be showing up, talking about women in sport and progressive pathway of careers. We always talk about the player pathway, but actually the operational and the behind the scenes, all the stuff that goes into running a professional women's team. For you, it's been quite a journey, because it actually, for a lot of women, it did start with the men's team first.
Yeah, so I started working at the boys' academy in 2016 as operations assistant. So I initially joined kind of thinking I wanted to be a sports journalist, and I would just work my way through. I'll just go to Bristol Sport and work my way through, and then ended up at the Boys Academy for over 6 years. Worked my way up to head of operations there, and then I've ended up at the women. So it's all been good fun. I
think it was probably a natural transition though, wasn't it? Because obviously when the Boys Academy was based up at SGS, the women's, as it was, Bristol City Women's Academy played out of SGS, so there was always some crossover.
Yeah, it was kind of a strange, it was definitely a different setup than it is today, obviously, but we were all on SGS college site. There wasn't that much crossover because we didn't share an office or anything, but I was one of the only women who worked at the Boys Academy. So I think naturally it just became easier to talk to the women's team because I was also a woman, so I would talk to some of the other staff who worked there, and we'd sometimes share kit and stuff. It was one of those type of days.
We will come on to kit discussions.
And then when the Boys Academy moved to the HPC, the women were coming up. Was it one day a week used to come up on a Wednesday maybe?
Yeah.
And I kind of just got chatting to everyone as I kind of do.
As you do.
As I do. And it just seemed like a really fun place to work with a great team. So when I got the job as operations manager, I was really happy, really excited.
Yeah. And it has changed a lot over the last, 8-10 years, that pathway of Bristol City Women's Academy into becoming fully Bristol City, and then the one club approach, moving from SGS. I mean, everyone runs out of Robin's HPC, and I know that brings with it a lot of logistical problems, shall we say, for a building that was probably traditionally designed actually as hosting just probably the men's first team.
Yeah, so week to week, every day, the men's team, the men's academy, and then our team up there 9 till 5 in the day, and then the boys academy also train in the evening. The girls academy still train over at SGS, so that's kind of a bit of a division there that we'd like to try and close a bit more. But the HPC is pretty full day to day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's full in a good way, in that it's great to see, the change over the last decade that I've seen, it, particularly in women's sport, is incredible. Lauren, for you came through the journey of being at SGS as well, and then stepping away and then coming back to the club in your role as head coach. I mean, from a coaching performance, I was saying how important it is about visibility. I mean, we have the dubious sort of record standout, I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, of having an all-female coaching team.
Yeah, and it's
sad that we have to celebrate that almost.
Yeah, and it's not only just by accident, it's by design. I think it's important that females, other women, get chances that seem to be easy for men to get. So the best people for the job have got the job, and I'm really happy that those are two women by my side, so Nat Haig and Lauren Dyke. So it's worked out that way. But also what I love about our staff, we've got Erica Mole who runs the performance side of it. We've got a sports therapist, Jess Wells. So throughout our whole thread, on the pitch and off the pitch, we've got women doing great jobs for the team. And great male allies in that sense as well, fighting for equality for us, standards, and I feel that together those things work hand in hand really well.
I mean, I think it's very apparent when you're watching all the televised games. You know, it's amazing that we've got to a place where women's football is consistently on television. It's getting great viewing numbers. But it always pains me slightly when they cut to the coaching team and it's often an all-male lineup. And I think Bristol City does stand apart from that when we see actually how many women run through the business, you know, on the field and off the field. Congratulations to you. You have just recently passed your UEFA Pro licence. How difficult was it going through those badges? Because it's been quite tough, hasn't it? I mean, in terms of, I think there's only 3 of you now that have got the pro licence.
Yeah, in Wales, yeah. So there's 3 of us. It is. I've kind of got used to it, and I would say that I have, but hopefully that's not the same for whoever does that next as well. But you know, the first day I walked into the pro licence, there was 19 men and me, and you kind of go in with the guard of it's 19v1 here. You know, you're not going to stand much chance in some scenarios. But I was pleasantly surprised with the support that I've had throughout the course, and still do. We're very much in touch in terms of a group. But I think the turning point for me was somebody was delivering, an older ex-manager, male, and was quite, you know, kept addressing the groom as guys, and everything was about the men, and everything was that. And by this point, I've just turned off, and I'm not really thinking it's got anything to do with me, because I'm not being included in the conversation. And what I really loved was, by the end of that session, about 5 or 6 of the guys on the course with me came up to me and said, "I didn't like that. That's not on." And I said, "Well, it's up to you to go and do something about that. I can't just fight it for myself anymore." So, you know, I think what I found on this most recent course was the change of culture in football is happening, and I'm really pleased to be part of that.
Yeah, I mean, that advocacy is a huge part, and I think that's often very much a topic of conversation. We were at a Bears event this morning of celebrating women in sport, and the whole one of the first times when we started hosting these Breakfast Club events, when we tagged them as women in sport events, there was no men in the room. They felt they couldn't attend, yet there was a lot of men that did want to attend, and this year it was a lot higher number than it's been previously. It wasn't quite half, but it was probably pushing that way. And that advocacy piece is a huge part. How much has been coming to Bristol, the difference? I mean, I know Erica tells a good story of actually when she's played with and been with other clubs, or, you know, in her professional career, working in other clubs, Bristol is not the norm.
No, and that changed over the last few years, really, with being moved into the HPC and treated equally there, to some extent, as in we were on the same site, we were training in the day, we were full-time professionals, and it doesn't go equal through everything you do, unfortunately, but on the face of it, and, you know, credit to Nigel Pearson at the time, it was down to him to almost open the doors, which he did on day one, basically, and from that point onwards, that made it easy for us to be able to do our jobs in the most professional manner. So yes, it's not the norm. You don't get this very often, and it normally goes down to there's not enough space. And I think we can show that we can make it work as a club. You don't need space. You need a mindset. A mindset and an attitude. And from an operational point of view, I know you share a lot of conversations with Daisy Mays, who's sort of your opposite number over at the Bears High Performance Centre. And it's interesting, you talk about that move of, oh, well, there's not enough space to accommodate the women, or you can't sit there because we need... Actually, one of the first things Bears did was change the signage on the doors to reflect that it was all equal. So there are, you know, the academy players for the men's team, the women's team and the men's first team are all visually represented. And that's something that I know you've been having many discussions with Daisy about.
Yeah, I think it's just those things that maybe seem really small that actually make such a big difference, like the language used, how we're kind of labelled as we're a first team, our men are also a first team, so it's like, how do you differentiate between those two? And yeah, it's been really good to chat with Daisy around a lot of the same kind of concerns and issues, and how at Bears they've got to a certain stage and how we've done it at City as well. So it's been really good to kind of compare and contrast and share things too.
Have you got a view on the naming conventions? I always think I find it quite interesting in terms of how you choose a brand or how you market a brand or a team. Lionesses took a very clear stance that they were going to differentiate themselves from the England football team, which traditionally most people assume as soon as you say England football, they will think of the men's first team. They chose Lionesses. Obviously, we are one brand, one club, but we are Bristol City. Fans will hate me calling it, but it is a brand in terms of from a marketable international logo. That is what we are, and I look at that and I see men and I see women, but that's not the same for everyone. What are your...
Yeah, I think as long as you stick to what your principles are, both could work. So, you know, back in the day we were the Vixens, right?
Yeah.
Before we even had that, I think the first City shirt that we had we still had the Vixens in the
yeah.
collar or
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously we fondly have put that behind us in terms of the name of the Vixens and taken up the Robins, but you know, I think there was even a point where it had the badge and women underneath, just in case everybody didn't know that was the women, and you know, we've come far away from
that the women were
wearing
actually
it
in the kit.
Yeah, so I think, you know, like we've been able to put those situations, you know, to bed, and we are just the brand and the badge. We're both first team, so it's the women's team and it's the men's team. When you're in the building and you're talking about it, and it's the women's academy, it's the men's academy. I think it's just so simple.
One of the things that I think everyone is very proud of, the conversation of where City women, I know I'm acutely aware I'm interviewing you off the back of probably you were certainly the crossest I've ever seen you on Sunday. It was a really difficult performance, a tough game against Brighton that, you know, really felt like it was a must win. And we didn't. But actually, you don't want that to eclipse the incredibleness of this season. And it's the fan base and the following. I mean, did you know, when we were all having the discussions going into this season when we'd won promotion, I don't like I was a part of it, when you won promotion, the whole of the team, that the conversation around season tickets and playing here at Ashton Gate, how has that been for you? Like,
that was amazing. The fact that we, you know, as a club decided to go all in and play all of the games at Ashton Gate was huge. No other team does that. 80-90% do. You know, I think Leicester play quite a lot, but they've still had to rely on a second stadia. So the fact that even when we've had 3 games in a weekend here, everyone's got on with it. I think that is brilliant. It represents us as a club, and that's one of those feelings that I think we can be really proud of, and then it's allowed us to grow as well, to something we can be really, really proud of, because everyone wants to be part of it now, and so many teams, other coaches always bring that up quite early with me as well, like, it's great they play here. Yeah. You know, that's one of the first things, this is great, and you're like, yeah, it is great, and we're really, really proud of it. The amazing work that the club have done and the city have done to get that support behind us, I think it's incredible. We've been picked out of European leagues because of our attendances.
I think 4th highest attendance in Europe.
Yeah, and that's just something that we need to continue with, because there's no reason, I don't think, that means people don't come and watch because of the league you're in. You can look at some of the attendances in the league below, but actually tier 3 as well. Again, huge numbers, way beyond ours as well at some games. So why can't we just continue the aspiration?
And who knows? You know, it's not all over.
It's not done yet, so we won't go there.
And you did say in the press conference, because I was with you on Sunday, you know, actually maybe this will almost take not the shackles off, but I can't remember the phrasing that you used, but actually it's like, let's just go out there and play. And it's such a young team that you have built and put together, isn't it? I mean, hopefully they'll be fearless now, because actually sometimes that pressure can weigh very heavily, but actually when you think that's being removed, the freedom to play will emerge.
Yeah, and I hope that that's where we get to a point where we are free to play, but we still got a chance of staying. You know, that there's a carrot at the end of it as well, and that's how it feels today coming off the training pitch, is another level of determination, another level of let's go again. And
you've got a hard run in now though, haven't you, as well?
Yeah, so that's part of the shackles coming off, because you're not meant to win any of those games, you know, when people look at the numbers of the top 4, top 5. So, you know, that's maybe the freedom that we can find while still fighting for our lives, because no one's willing to give up at this point yet.
And I mean, I touched a little bit on the age and not singling out any of the players, but it's tough when I mean, if you take one of the players out, I think the average age is 19, 20, isn't it now in your...
22.
22. Is it 22? Is that with all the squad in?
Yeah.
Yeah. which is, I mean, incredibly young in comparison with the rest of the teams that you're battling against.
Yeah, and part of the bit that I love particularly about Bristol City is about, you know, developing players and developing experiences come with that. And part of that experience was the challenge to get promoted, the promotion, and then to try and see what we would do in the WSL, but without changing the plan or the DNA or anything that we do. And the experience has been a tough one. And regardless of what happens from here till the end of the season, I know that experience will benefit the players, the young players, all of the players, in the next challenge they come up against. So if we get relegated and go back up, they'll be more prepared. That's one way to look at it, but it's something that I'm really passionate about. It's about the development of people and players, and even though sometimes it doesn't feel great, more often than not at the moment, it is still great to walk out on a Wednesday today and see training happen and see the passion, and I admire that in the players, that they can come every day and they will never give up. And
you have got some players coming back as well. I mean, I guess not saying not singling out players, but I mean, one of the big surprise call-ups was seeing Naomi go and train with the England team. I know it was a fiercely proud moment, but watching that player development, that's what we do really well.
Yeah, I think probably over the last season, everyone's kind of clocked on to that. Lauren loves developing a young player, and like that is probably what we've become. Like that is the Bristol City's identity. Like, give Lauren a young player, and the team will develop her into.
The number of people I had mentioned, like when Lauren Hemp, you know, when we had Mary Earps, you know, it has been a great pathway. So there is much to celebrate. I know you feel probably it's been a tough week so far, but it's good to see that, you know, the looking forward to the last part of the season and big push, and to really galvanise our fan base, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, 100%, and hopefully we'll always chase that win or that point for the fans at home as well. That's going to be going, you know, if we can do that before the end of the season, that's something that is going to be absolutely between our teeth.
Yeah, well, very best of luck for the rest of the season, and enjoy International Women's Day, and thank you for coming on. But I know neither of you particularly enjoy the media spotlight, so thank you for coming and talk, because it is about this inspiring inclusion, and actually being seen is really important. So thank you, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.